Welcome to our webinar. We're going to be discussing 401ks and IRAs, and we're going to do a little compare and contrast so you can understand the differences and benefits with each of them.
All right, first up is a 401k. A 401k is a tactic, not a strategy. It is an arrow to put in your financial quiver, but not a bow. It will not propel a peaceful and prosperous retirement. A 401k on its own is not a retirement plan. It's good to have because oftentimes a company will offer a company match, which is free money, but on its own, it does not make a retirement plan.
So let's just kind of go over a brief history of the company offered 401k that hopefully many of you have. So in 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Tax Act. And in 1981, the IRS issued rules that enabled companies to fund 401ks through salary deductions. And in 1983, nearly half of all US firms offered their employees a 401k. Again, which is great. It's free money if there is a company match. And in 2001, there was an Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act, which resulted in several changes to the 401k. And in 2006, the Pension Protection Act made it easier for companies to enroll their employees automatically into 401ks.
So despite how popular the 401k plan is today, they were created almost by accident. In that 78 Tax Act passed by Congress, there was a provision included, Section 401k coincidentally, that allowed employees to avoid being taxed on deferred compensation. Many early backers of the 401k when it was first created said it wasn't designed to be a primary retirement tool and acknowledged they used forecasts that were too optimistic to sell the plan in its early days. Here's a quote from the Wall Street Journal. Others say the proliferation of 401k plans has exposed workers to big drops in the stock market and high fees from Wall Street money managers. Even the father of the 401k, the man named Ted Benna, the guy who created it very first and had the idea, he told the Journal that he with some regret, that he helped open the door for Wall Street to make even more money than they already were making.
So let's kind of talk about 401ks, the Roth option versus the traditional option. So in the Roth option, you obviously start with your gross pay. Your taxes are then taken out, and then you have your net or your take-home pay. And you fund your Roth with after-tax dollars. This way, your Roth grows tax-free, but at retirement, your withdrawals from a Roth are tax-free. In a traditional 401k, you have your gross pay. Your company then takes out your contribution and places it into your 401k with pre-tax dollars. Taxes are then taken out of your paycheck. You then have your net or your take-home pay. Your money grows tax-free in your 401k in a traditional, but then the money is subject to income tax at retirement when you withdraw.
All right, number two, let's move on to an IRA, an individual retirement account. One big difference between an IRA and a 401k is an IRA will follow you around your whole life, no matter where you go, no matter what happens. A 401k is tied to the company. It's always under the company's purview. You do have option once you leave the company to roll it over into a new account, like an IRA, but there's more hoops they have to jump through that aren't as desirable as just not having hoops jumped in the beginning. So we think that an IRA, especially a Roth IRA, is a better way to go.
So let's do a brief history of the individual retirement account, or the IRA. So in 1974, Congress passed the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And in 1981, the Economic Recovery Tax Act allowed the IRA to become universally available as a savings incentive for all workers under age 71 and a half. in 1986, the Tax Reform Act placed income restrictions limiting who can contribute to an IRA. Most recently, the Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act, passed in late 2019, made sweeping changes to the IRA landscape.
Now, through legislation, the IRS and Congress, they will change some of the nuances surrounding the 401k and an IRA, but the basics of how they work won't change. And so similar, almost identical to a 401k, the IRA, there are two kinds of IRAs. There's the Roth and the traditional. Let's start with the Roth. So on the left, when you get your paycheck, you get your gross pay very first. And then your company keeps your gross pay and they take out taxes for you. And then they give you what's left over, or your net pay, your take-home pay. And then with those dollars, you fund your Roth. And then for the rest of that time till retirement, your Roth grows tax-free. And then at retirement, you can withdraw your money from your Roth income tax-free, which is a pretty good deal. And then on the other side, on the right, we have the traditional. So just like the Roth, you get your gross pay, but before the company takes out taxes for you, the company will take out a predetermined amount to fund your traditional IRA with. And then after all that is said and done, then they give you your net pay, your take-home pay. And then within your traditional IRA, your money grows tax-free until retirement. And then your money, once you retire and you become eligible to take your money out without any penalties, your money is subject to income tax at retirement. The IRS does allow for very specific instances where you can take your money out early and not be penalized for it, but those are very specific and very case-by-case basis.
So let's go over the main difference between a traditional and a Roth and how they are taxed. So in a traditional, you're not taxed going in, but there's an income tax coming out. For a Roth, it's tax going in, but it's not tax going out. And so for the Roth, it's a really good method to set up retirement when you're going to have limited income, so you're not having to worry about paying taxes on that amount.
So we think that everyone should open a Roth. I mean, of course, we want to meet with you and actually go over your financial picture, and because we're fiduciaries, we will make recommendations based on what we think will help you the most. But it's like 8.5, very close to 9 times out of 10, we will recommend the Roth. The Roth IRA is the best option because taxes are bound to only go up in the future. And taxes paid now are far preferable to taxes you'll need to pay later.
Thank you so much for joining us as we discussed 401k and IRAs and the differences and the benefits of each one. Follow us on Facebook at Williams Personal Finance and Shumway Personal Finance to get daily tips and tricks and different strategy ideas to maximize your financial portfolio and to get the biggest bang for your buck.